From the Londoners newsroom at 2:45, I'm Christopher Chalmers. Good afternoon. The Archbishop of Canterbury has resigned following a damning report into historic child abuse. Justin Welby admitted that he failed to ensure allegations of abuse were thoroughly investigated. A survivor, Mark Stribe, was 16 when he suffered abuse in the 1970s at the hands of John Smythe. He made formal allegations in 2013, but Welby failed to report the case to the authorities. Smythe abused up to 140 boys over 40 years, but died a free man in 2018. An independent review concluded that Smythe could have been brought to justice if Welby had reported him to the police in 2013. The Prime Minister commented that victims of historic abuse had been let down very, very badly, and that the allegations were horrific. In other news, Labour MP Kim Leadbeater will introduce an assisted dying bill to the House of Commons tomorrow. The historic bill to legalise assisted dying in England and Wales would allow those who are terminally ill to end their lives. Leadbeater claims that the bill will have the strongest safeguards in the world, including a requirement of a High Court judge to approve. But critics argue that people could feel obligated to commit suicide and that there is a risk of people being coerced into the process. The Prime Minister says he is still undecided on how he will vote on the first reading tomorrow. Also, more than 200 hospitality bosses have signed a letter stating that changes in the budget will cause job losses in the industry. They also state that the budget will disproportionately affect independent businesses and the hospitality industry by raising the amount employers will pay in national insurance. We have been speaking to a small business owner to hear how the changes are affecting people like him.
My name's William Patton. I'm a level 4 sport masseur and I run my own massage company.
I think really when we're looking forward towards, at some point, hopefully expanding the business when it comes to hiring more employees, expenditures will go up due to the increase in minimum wage. That would be probably my main concern, minimum wage. I think they will ultimately deter a level of competitiveness as well. Yeah, certainly you'll see potentially less growth, especially from those smaller businesses. One thing I'm worried about is national insurance being charged on pensions as well. I think obviously this is going to lead to a lot of people putting less into their pensions and ultimately retiring later into their life as well.
Honestly, I don't think the government realises how hard it is for small businesses right now.
I know people who run their own businesses as well. You hear a lot of it. It's hard on businesses at the moment.
It feels like the government's doing everything it can to hinder us.
The budget, I think, is anti-business, anti-growth.
The government should be doing everything it can to make it easier for entrepreneurs to start their own businesses. This will bring more jobs, more wealth, and me.
In other news, Gary Lineker is to leave Match of the Day after 25 years on the BBC's flagship programme. Lineker will leave the show this summer, but will anchor the 2026 World Cup coverage under an 18-month contract extension. The former England star is paid more than £1.3 million a year, the highest declared salary of any BBC presenter. His departure comes after a public battle with BBC management over his use of social media, in which he criticised the previous Conservative government. Lineker compared their Rwanda policy to the rise of Nazism in the 1930s and was suspended. His suspension led to several pundits refusing to present Match of the Day in his absence. Also, a 2,000-year-old Roman road has been discovered directly beneath the old Kent Road in southeast London. Archaeologists from the Museum of London Archaeology worked with Southwark Council to unearth the section of road. They said that it was well preserved and that it was likely built shortly after the Roman invasion of Britain in 43 AD. The discovery shows that modern commuters are using the same road once used by visiting emperors, including Hadrian, in 122 AD. And finally, Harlequin supporters have donated £3,500 to help primary school students in southwest London. The supporters group, known as Quinsa, raised the money which will be donated to the Harlequins Foundation. The foundation aims to help children from poorer backgrounds play rugby at Harlequins' historic Stoop Stadium and encourage youth development. The head of the programmes at the Harlequins Foundation, Matt Shillabir, said that the donation would deliver training to children who had never played rugby before and cover transport costs. That's the latest. Your next update is at 3 o'clock. Good afternoon.
I'm not surprised because I'm not surprised because
From the Londoners newsroom at 3 p.m, I'm Florence Cutts. Archbishop of Canterbury Justin Welby resigns over Church of England abuse scandal. Justin Welby faced pressure to resign after it emerged last week that he did not follow up rigorously enough on reports of John Smith's abuse of more than 100 boys and young men. The report concluded he might have been brought to justice before his death had Mr. Welby formally reported it to the police over a decade ago. In a resignation letter, Justin Welby said the report exposed the long-maintained conspiracy of silence about the heinous abuses of John Smith. He says when he was told in 2013 that Smith had been reported to police, that he believed wrongly that an appropriate resolution would follow. Despite insisting last week that he would not resign, he has said that it is clear he must take personal and institutional responsibility. Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer tells the COP29 climate conference he is committed to a more ambitious climate goal for the UK. The UK will aim to cut carbon emissions by 81% by 2035. The PM insisted that he won't tell people how to live their lives, saying a clean energy transition rather than leaning on ordinary citizens to drive less or eat less meat would lead the change. In his speech at the climate conference, Starmer has insisted that the UK will stand on the front line of climate change. The UK's unemployment rate has risen whilst pay growth continues to slow. Figures from the Office for National Statistics show that the unemployment rate was at 4.3% over the last 3 months to September, showing an increase from the 4% reported a month prior. The tax rises have led to concerns from businesses that they might have to cut back on hiring, restrict wage increases for staff, or raise prices. This story comes after the autumn budget was announced by Chancellor Rachel Reeves on October 30th. I spoke to 21-year-old actor and musician Neo Merrill about how the budget is affecting him, both positively and negatively as a freelancer in the creative industry, and his opinion on the budget.
I'm not surprised because I guess the arts is always one of the first things to get kind of put by the wayside. I think a lot of like the changes are good. I understand it, but as an artist, it's like the worst thing you want to see. Travel, first of all, travel's going up in general. So someone that commutes, that's just never fun to have. It's now going to be harder to get the first stamp duty on your house as a young person. That's never good, you never want to see that. I guess because they're upping the national insurance, the chances of my work ever being made full-time lowers, even though like I'm already a freelancer. Maybe down the line I was hoping to become part-time, full-time with that company, but the odds of them bringing on more of those kind of people is less, so they'll probably stick closer to that freelance mold, which is good, but then also, you know, provides long-term worries. I think on the whole it's good in terms of attracting production companies and filmmakers / artists to the UK and to promote that industry that is one of our biggest. I think that there is still probably quite a big focus on like already established houses, maybe not as much groundwork now being laid for like newer UK film based things, but hopefully the experience it will attract will then trickle down, and we hope that, you know, that will also sow new seeds as well. Inflation, like cost of living, food prices, how can we tackle that? That's probably my biggest thing. I think that the Labour government is not trying to give everyone false hope just so they can not be the bad guys, but I don't think they're doing anything particularly groundbreaking. From an artist's point of view, I'd say negative. From just a young person's point of view, I would say it's on the whole neutral.
Mayor Sadiq Khan has said that a 1% fall in house prices in London could yield 7.3 billion to the economy over a decade. In a speech at the Centre for London's annual conference, Sadiq Khan has said a new report outlined the significant impact improving housing affordability could have on London's productivity. New research commissioned by a group of housing associates found that declining housing affordability has had a significant negative effect on London's economic productivity. The mayor has also said that the lack of affordable homes is having a profound and devastating effect in every corner of the capital, impacting every part of its progress. He has said that more affordable housing in London would make it easier for businesses to attract and retain workers and reduce homelessness and the reliance on temporary accommodation, which in turn would lead to more jobs and more investment for future growth. Fan-led group Quinza, which was created to support Twickenham's Harlequin Football Club, has donated £3,500 to help introduce rugby to primary schools across Merton. Quinza's contribution will directly benefit young people in the community and give deprived children a chance to play at the Stoop. Both Quinza and the Harlequins Foundation are committed to working together in order to open up the sport to everybody. Matt Schillerbeer, the head of programs at the Harlequins Foundation, stated that the funding will help them allow to deliver a term's worth of rugby to students who have never played before and give them an opportunity to play on the pitch, which, I quote, is an experience that plenty of adults would kill for. That's the latest. Your next update is at 3:13 p.m.
first change that is going to be, so one of the changes
From the Londoners newsroom at 3:15, I'm Tassine. A new bill proposing the legalisation of assisted dying in England and Wales is set to be debated in Parliament later this month. If passed, the law would grant adults with less than 6 months to live the right to end their own life, with the assistance of medical professionals. Under the new bill, doctors would prepare the necessary substance, but the individual would have to take the final steps themselves. The person seeking assisted dying must meet several criteria, including approval from 2 independent doctors and a High Court judge. The bill will be debated and voted on by MPs on November 29th. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has announced that Labour MPs will have a free vote on the issue, allowing them to decide according to their personal beliefs. Residents of Putney and Wimbledon have petitioned for Transport for London to drastically reform bus services. The petition calls for an increased frequency of buses in hopes of reducing the waiting times, ensuring adequate sizing of buses to combat overcrowding, and clearer information to avoid passenger confusion. It is focused specifically on services provided by Go Ahead London and select TfL bus routes. The petition has already had over 750 signatures on change.org. This comes after network performance data published by TfL revealed that from April 1st to June 21st this year, 13.7% of buses departed 5 to 15 minutes late. The NHS is set to offer a new improved stop smoking pill to thousands of smokers in England. The drug, varenicline, is a daily tablet taken over several months, and NHS England says it is as effective as e-cigarettes and more effective than nicotine replacement products like gum or patches. The drug was previously available under the brand name Champix, but was withdrawn a few years ago due to impurities. The new version has now been approved as safe. Also, NHS Stop Smoking Services will offer e-cigarettes in some cases as a 2-week starter kit. Local services will decide when e-cigarettes are appropriate as part of the wider effort to help people quit smoking. The UK's unemployment rate has risen to 4.3% in the 3 months to September, up from 4% in the previous quarter, according to official figures. However, the Office for National Statistics has cautioned against over-interpreting these figures due to potential issues with how the data is collected. While wage growth has slowed, pay is still outpacing inflation, including bonuses. Pay growth with 4.8% year-on-year between July and September, marking the lowest increase in over 2 years. Additionally, the number of job vacancies continued to fall, a trend which has persisted for more than 2 years. Overall, the labour market appears to be cooling, with slower pay growth and a drop in job vacancies, although wages are still growing at a pace above inflation. Labour announced their new autumn bill last month. Rachel Reeves addressed the Houses of Commons on the new changes. This will affect the property market, including landlords. I spoke with letting agent Zahid Mahmood, who thinks the new budget will affect landlords.
First change that is going to be, so one of the changes that's going to be affecting us is the abolition of Section 21, the no-fault eviction. So what that means is currently right now, if the landlord wants to get rid of a tenant, he can just ask them to leave with a 2 months notice. And after that, the tenant has to leave. If they don't leave, you can go through the court. But what's going to happen here is that the tenant has to specifically be causing antisocial behavior. Because of that, the landlord is allowed to evict the tenant. There is going to be no other reasons that the landlord can evict him. He can also evict him based on if he wants to sell the property. But if he doesn't sell the property within the first year, and that he used that as an excuse to be able to get the tenant out, then he has to pay a £7,000 penalty. There's other changes as well. Should I go through them?
Yes, just any changes that have affected you and your business?
Yeah, the one I'm going to do,
The BBC has confirmed that Match of the Day's Gary Lineker is to step down as the host, marking the end of an era for the BBC football programme. After many years as the face of the show, Lineker is set to leave at the conclusion of the season. The Sun reports that Lineker will continue his role throughout the coverage of the 2026 World Cup before parting ways with the BBC. This marks a significant moment in sports broadcasting, given Lineker's long-standing association with both the programme and the corporation. That's the latest. Your next update is at 3:30.
Hello, my name is Halima Abdi from the Londoners News. Joining me today is Qadra Abdinasir from Centre for Mental Health. We're going to dive into the reflections on the autumn. From the Londoners News at 3:30, my name is Halima Abdi. An update has just come through in that the Archbishop of Canterbury resigns due to his handling of the serial abuser to be associated with the Church of England. The Church's Parliament gathered 1,500 successful signatures urging for Justin Welby to stand down over his failures to alert the authorities of John Smith's abhorrent abuse to children and young men. Terminally ill adults who have less than 6 months to live could request assistance to end their lives under the proposed law of England and Wales. The Assistant Dying Bill was introduced last night ahead of the parliamentary debate and a vote that will be made at the end of the month. Keir Starmer says MPs should make their mind up on on the Assisted Dying Bill. BBC have confirmed that Gary Lineker will step down from hosting the match of the day by the end of the season. Lineker has presented the football's highlights for 25 years, but he will still go on to host the 2026 World Cup. UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer attended the Global Summit in Azerbaijan. Starmer warned against the climate inaction and expressed his very ambitious targets to tackle the greenhouse gases emissions by 2035. Sir Keir Starmer highlights the race is on for clean energy jobs of the future, the economy of tomorrow. Hello, my name is Halima Abdi from the Londoners News. Joining me today is Qadra Abdinasir from Centre for Mental Health, and we're going to dive into the reflections on the autumn budget and what it means for communities and charities. What was your initial reaction to the budget being announced?
This autumn statement was really much anticipated. The new Labour government had a range of commitments and proposals within their manifestos. But overall, I think there's a sense that they fell short in making that true commitment in financial terms with the budget, because the scale of change and vision that they have and the funding they've put aside for it don't quite add up. So I'll be quite keen to see what further announcements they make as part of the spring budget.
How does the budget impact the charity sector of your company?
So the budget, unfortunately, has included some really worrying proposals for the charity sector, because the charity sector has already been struggling off the back of COVID-19. There really wasn't a significant investment that went to the voluntary and community sector. So we're already dealing with being behind because of the pressures of the pandemic. But some of the particular proposals we're concerned about, for example, while we really welcome the increase in the national living wage for people, the minimum wage for people, we're worried about how charities would be able to increase that offer for their staff.
I'm a I'm a Celebrity Get Me Out of Here is back for 2024, and that means a new lineup of celebrities will be back on our screen this Sunday. This year's show will see 10 familiar faces swap their glamorous lives in the UK for a rough and basic camp life in the Australian jungle. The Lido Music Festival is a new event taking place in Victoria Park, London, over 2 weekends in June 2025. The festival aims to spotlight emerging talent from the UK and around the world. Students from the East London Arts and Music School will be given an opportunity to perform and learn festival production skills. The festival is expected to further enhance the borough's reputation as a culture hub in North East London. That is your latest. Your next update is at 3:45.
I am a carer to my 12-year-old son that has ASD. I am a carer to my
From the Londoners newsroom at 3:45, I'm Malia Alcid-Clark. In breaking news, the Archbishop of Canterbury has resigned following a church abuse scandal. Archbishop Justin Welby has announced that he will resign after facing heavy pressure to quit due to his handling of the John Smith case. Many argue that he should resign due to not alerting the authorities about the series of abuse at the hands of John Smith, who was then associated with the church. Welby has since apologised and stated that he had no knowledge of Smith's abuse before 2013. An assisted dying pill has been proposed in Parliament following months of discussion. The end-of-life bill was published on Monday night and states that a pill can be given to adults with terminal illnesses if they would like to seek help and end their life after the approval from two doctors and a judge. The MP behind the bill, Labour's Kim Leadbeater, expresses that her plan is more aimed to shorten death rather than end life. The introduction of the bill has been met with opposing views, with campaign group Dignity and Dying arguing that adults deserve the right to control the timing and manner of their death. Opposing group Care Not Killing states that the focus should be on promoting more and better palliative care than euthanasia. In travel news, some services in London may be disrupted due to broken rails and a shortage of staff. National Rail has confirmed that a broken rail is the cause of disruptions in and out of Paddington Station, affecting trains running between London Heathrow Airport and Reading. The main lines which have been subject to delays and cancellations are the Elizabeth Line, the Great Western Railway, and the Heathrow Express. Along with the shortage of signalling staff, it is possible that these disruptions could continue throughout the rest of the day. Travellers are warned to plan out their journeys. In other news, unemployment has risen whilst pay growth is slowing. New figures from the Office of National Statistics has shown that the unemployment rate in the UK has increased to 4.3%. The rate of unemployment rose by 0.3% in the 3 months to September, which is up from 4% in the previous quarter. Concurrently, stats have shown that wage growth has eased to 4.8% following the 3 months to September. Work and Pensions Secretary Liz Kendall admits that more needs to be done to improve living standards. Following the autumn budget, the carers allowance is set to have its biggest increase since 1976. Chancellor Reeves has declared that the earnings limit for carers will rise from £151 to £196 per week. Carers can now earn £45 more without losing their benefits. It has also been confirmed that the weekly amount will increase by £1.39. A local South London carer shares how this will benefit her and other carers.
I am a carer to my 12-year-old son that has ASD alongside speech and language difficulties. So I think it's great that they've made an increase. It's something that is not regularly done. It doesn't actually benefit me because I'm not currently in a working situation, but for those that it will help, it will be greatly beneficial. Being a carer is extremely difficult, and any extra income can really help with the care of the person, but also the self-care of the carer. It's really good. As I stated before, any additional money can really help. Being a carer can be quite costly. You've always got to provide for the person that you're caring for, but also for yourself. In some cases, people have to travel a lot. In other cases, if you cannot work full time, that money is going to supplement your household costs and bills. It will go towards the cost of living for me in 2024. In my 4 years on earth, we haven't seen costs this high, and this will help towards just supporting the household. I think it could have been increased a little more because I feel like the money we are supplemented does not match the current climate and the current cost of living, so I definitely feel it could have been increased.
And finally, a centre in South East London has met controversy after residents rally against its redevelopment. South West Londoners Poppy Pearce reports that the proposed development of the Elysium Centre in Peckham has given way to concerns surrounding increase in rent prices and gentrification. Property developers Berkeley Group plan to develop the long-standing arcade into new buildings, including homes and commercial spaces. The Elysium Community Action, a campaign group, advocate for the centre to be redeveloped in a way that prioritises the community and its engagement and reflects the community's needs. That's the latest. Your next update is at 4 o'clock.
Initial reaction to the budget was, I'm rather hopeful.
From the Londoners newsroom at 4, I'm Tia Melville. The Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, has resigned following a report which found that the Church of England covered up child sexual abuse. It said that John Smith, across decades and involving as many as 130 boys and young men, subjected his victims to many forms of abuse. The report concluded that he might have been brought to justice had Mr. Welby formally reported it to police decade ago. In his resignation letter, Mr. Welby has said when he was informed in 2013 and told that the police had been notified, he wrongly believed that an appropriate resolution would follow, and it is clear that he must take personal and institutional responsibility. In other news, the Chancellor Rachel Reeves has delivered Labour's first budget since 2010, announcing tax rises worth £40 billion to fund the NHS and other public services. Key outlines from her budget speech included legal minimum wage for over 21s to rise from £11.40 to £12.21 per hour, companies to pay national insurance at 15% on salaries, exemptions when inheriting farmland to be made less generous from 2026, and £1 billion of additional funding for children with special educational needs and disabilities. Rees has told the BBC that this isn't a budget they'd like to repeat, but insists it's needed to plug a £22 billion hole in the nation's finances. Here with a comment on the budget is Jack Edwards.
My initial reaction to the budget was, I'm rather hopeful, because it seems as though things are shifting in a different direction, even if ever so slightly. As far as I understand, whether taxing employers more than employees, what that will probably mean in the long term is that we're not going to see as much tax, and gradually the economy is going to start moving again, which is what I'm somewhat hopeful for. because it's kind of stagnated a bit. What I'm hoping it's going to mean for my profession in the long run is working in education. The last 10 years have seen a lot of cuts, so I'm hoping that once the money starts flowing again, some of that money can start going back into education, and we'll start to see some positive changes in that sector. I think it's mostly positive. I think more than anything, it seems realistic. It doesn't feel like there's anything that they're keeping from the country. Like, it's not all great for everyone, and I think if they'd come out and said that was going to be the case, I think I would have been a lot more cross and worried there's something brewing on the horizon that we can't see yet. So it felt very earnest.
Following the budget and the government's decision for the extension of inheritance tax, thousands of farmers are set to demonstrate in London later this month after getting the green light by the Met Police. The demonstration has been organised alongside an NFU lobbying event. Clive Bailey, organiser and founder of the Farming Forum, has said there were 2,000 registrations in the first 2 hours of the event being launched, and he could see the number of attendees getting past 10,000. Mr. Bailey has commented that this is a peaceful demonstration and they want to keep the public on their side and not disrupt roads or bring the city to a stop. The NFU event is being held alongside this to allow its members to petition MPs to overturn changes in the budget to agricultural and business property relief. What's more is Central London pub O'Neill's on Wardour Street is charging an extra £2 a pint after 10 p.m. Before that time, customers pay £7.40 for certain draft beers, with the same drink costing £9.40 after the cut-off. Michelle's and Butlers, the pub group that owns the venue, said the policy reflected a request from police and the local council, quote, that we increase prices after 10 p.m. to a level generally in line with the late-night market. A spokesperson further added that the temporary price increases tend to reflect the need to offset additional costs, such as at times when door security is required. Moreover, Quinessa, the Harlequin Supporters Association, has donated £3,500 to help introduce rugby to primary schools across Merton and give deprived children a chance to play at the Stoop. The Harlequin Supporters Association donated to the club's charity, the Harlequins Foundation, which supported local communities and encourages youth skill development through charity events, volunteering, and more meaningful initiatives like this. The contribution directly benefits young people in the community and reaches a new audience of potential rugby enthusiasts, with fundraising efforts culminating in a festival at the Stoop in June. That's your latest. Your next update will be at 4:15.
My name is John Wilkinson and I am the owner of 8 Vapes. As a small business owner, I had hoped... My name is John Wilkinson and I am the owner of 8 Vapes.
From the Londoners newsroom at 4:15, I'm Mackenzie Whitaker. At a COP29 summit held in Azerbaijan today, Prime Minister Keir Starmer has announced his ambitious climate target, outlining how he aims to slash carbon emissions by 81% by 2025. Since Labour's return to government, there have been several steps taken to reduce emissions, including scrapping the ban on onshore wind farms, pledging to not issue new gas and oil licences, and securing investments into carbon capture technology. The UK is understood to have halved their greenhouse gas emissions since 1990, with Starmer determined to stand alongside countries that are on the front line of the climate crisis. The Prime Minister has insisted we won't achieve them by telling people how to live their lives, but is confident they can be achieved by focusing on clean energy. He ended his conference saying, "There is a race on for the next generation of jobs. They are good, well-paid jobs." Justin Welby, better known as Archbishop of Canterbury, has resigned this afternoon after an independent review was published last week, detailing the disturbing activities of former Church of England barrister John Smith. John Smith has been found to have sexually abused as many as 130 boys in the span of his career and inflicted physical and emotional pain on his victims. The independent Making review concluded that he might have been brought to justice had Welby made a formal report in 2013. Welby has said today, "It is very clear I must take personal and institutional responsibility for the long and re-traumatising period between 2013 to 14. The last few days have renewed my long-felt and profound sense of shame at the safeguarding failures of the Church of England." Reform Party Nigel Farage said thank the Lord after hearing of the Archbishop's resignation, adding that perhaps the Church will now appoint a leader that believes in Christian values. In other news, the UK employment rates have been found to be on the rise. Unemployment rates have been found to be on the rise, while pay growth slows. Figures from the Office for National Statistics show unemployment has risen to 4.3% from 4% in the last quarter, while pay growth has slowed, dropping to 1.7% in September. A small business owner has said,
My name is John Wilkinson and I am the owner of 8 Vapes. As a small business owner, I had hoped that the budget would bring significant increases to employment allowance. This is important as our high streets are becoming derelict, which is influencing businesses that are still thriving, such as mine, all because people don't think of the high street as a worthy day out anymore. To add to this, I was disappointed to see the reduction of business rate relief. 75% to 40% will be a huge jump that some businesses may not survive. However, I am understanding of the fact that local councils rely heavily on business rates, and if this rate was to decrease, they would have no choice but to impose cuts on public services. Personally, I'm not against the rise of minimum wage. Our staff are very appreciated and valued, and of course they deserve to take home more money. The increase is welcome. However, I do see this as a glorified tax-generating exercise. Labour want to seem like they're supporting young workers and being understanding of the rise in living costs. when the likelihood is that workers will see no extra pennies in their pockets, but the tax man sure will. I sell roughly 5,000 small bottles of e-liquid a week. Some customers will refuse to pay an extra £2.20 on the same prices they have known for years. This tax hike will definitely see many fall back to tobacco products. Customers who have worked hard to give up cigarettes but now cannot justify the costs involved. We are proud to be in partnership with our local authority, successfully helping over 25 customers per week make the jump from tobacco to vaping products. Smoking is responsible for over 100,000 unnecessary deaths annually, and our mission is to help reduce the stress on the NHS.
In sport, the BBC has confirmed that presenter Gary Lineker will step down from his role at Match of the Day, although it has been announced that he will continue to host coverage of the FA Cup as well as the 2026 World Cup. Lineker has had a successful 25 seasons presenting Match of the Day and is understood to be continuing his Top 10 podcast. Lineker said, "I am delighted to continue my long association with BBC Sport and would like to thank all those that have made this happen." In southwest London, Remembrance Day tributes continue. B Richmond has partnered with the Poppy Factory to create multiple vibrant poppy installations named the Be Remembered campaign across Richmond Town Centre. The Poppy Factory was founded in 1922, and this year they have celebrated over a century of impactful work and remarkable stories. The charity continues to support wounded, injured and sick veterans, helping them to rebuild their lives. B Richmond Marketing Manager Anna Bromley said, "We are delighted to be working with the Poppy Factory to celebrate this milestone." That's the latest. Your next update is at 4:30.
I think this will be a positive impact because the workload has been getting worse. So I think this will be a positive impact because
From the Londoners newsroom at 4:30, I'm Ella McIntyre. Details have been published of the Terminally Ill Adults Bill. This legislation has been offered for those in England and Wales who are suffering to get medical help to end their lives. Those eligible are adults who are already terminally ill and have less than 6 months to live. They must also persuade 2 doctors and a High Court judge that this decision has been made of their own free will. Government has declared this a matter of conscience, therefore MPs won't be told how to vote, but many ministers are split on the issue. Opponents say this poses a real threat to some of our society's most vulnerable people. The bill is believed to help lower the rate of suicide within a year of the diagnosis amongst patients with severe health conditions. On another note, official figures suggest that the UK's employment rate has risen whilst the pay growth continues to slow. Although wage growth has eased, pay is still rising faster than inflation, which measures the rate of price increases. Pay grew at an annual rate of 4.8% between July and September, which is the lowest it's been for more than 2 years. Evidently affected by this, the UK's education sector currently has an acute shortage of teachers, with many schools struggling to retain staff. As a part of Labour's £2.3 billion budget boost, £450 million of that will be spent on hiring 6,500 new teachers. I spoke to secondary school teacher Ryan Blake, who tells me how this pledge from the government will be beneficial for schools.
So I think this will be a positive impact because the workload has been getting worse and worse over the years. I've been a teacher for like 5 years now, and every year there's been more and more of it due to the lack of funding for NQTs. So I saw this video online called Why the UK Schools Are Failing by a YouTuber called TLD on News, and he gave a figure of that 13% of NQTs leave within the first year and then 19% leave after the second year, mainly due to that workload. So with Labour's pledge and the new budget of 2.3 billion for the education sector, I believe that we'll be able to share out more of that workload, and it will lessen the pressure on a lot of the UK teachers, as well as the fact that they're going to increase the wages, which should drive more of the NQTs to stay on the job and persuade them to stay on for a little longer.
Next up, in breaking news, the Archbishop of Canterbury has resigned following the prolific child abuse report that was covered up for decades. In his resignation statement, Justin Welby says that the report exposed a long-maintained conspiracy of silence about the heinous abuses of John Smith. He says that when he was told in 2013 that Smith had been reported to the police, he believed wrongly that an appropriate resolution would follow. The victim was not brought to justice before his death in South Africa in 2018. Now to sports. With Gary Lineker stepping down from Match of the Day, at the end of this season, who is set to replace the nation's beloved host? Some potential names in the mix include well-known presenters such as Mark Chapman, Gabby Logan and Alex Scott, who have all previously been regular Match of the Day stand-ins. But fans can rest assured, Lineker will still lead the BBC's coverage of the next World Cup and continue leading their live coverage of the FA Cup. Now, moving forward, the South West Londoner reports that fan-led group Quinza that support the Harlequin Football Club have donated £3,500 to help introduce rugby to primary schools across Merton and give deprived children the chance to play at the Stoop in Twickenham. Matt Schillerbeer, head of programs at the Harlequins Foundation, said that this funding will not only allow them to deliver a term's worth of rugby to students who have never played it before, but also enable them to organise transport to the Stoop and give them an opportunity to play on the pitch, which is definitely an experience that plenty of adults would kill for. And finally, Robbie Williams fans will be pleased to hear that the ex-Take That member has announced that he will be going on tour next year. The 50-year-old singer promised his boldest shows yet and also teased fans with new music. Williams' biopic, Better Man, comes out in 2025, which has a CGI monkey that replaces himself. Apparently because he says he's one of the biggest pop stars in the world, but he's never seen himself, but he's always seen himself as a little less evolved. That's the latest. Your next update is at 4:45.
have seen some reasons for optimism in this budget, but we have seen some reasons for optimism in this budget, but
From the Londoners newsroom at 4:45, I'm Amy Collinson. The Archbishop of Canterbury has resigned following criticism of his handling of a report into a prolific child abuser associated with the Church of England. Justin Welby had faced mounting pressure to resign after it emerged last week that he did not follow up rigorously enough on reports of John Smith's abuse of more than 100 boys and young men. The report concluded that Smith may have been brought to justice had Welby formally reported it to the police a decade ago. The UK's unemployment rate has risen more than expected, while pay growth continues to slow. The rate of unemployment stood at 4.3% in the 3 months to September, which is up from 4%. The numbers of vacancies have also fell, as they have been doing so for more than 2 years now. This unexpected rise raises questions over the government's approach to the economy, especially following their budget 2 weeks ago. For comment on the budget, I spoke to Jack Ithell, who is the Manager of Communications for London-based housing charity Evolve, which provides supported housing.
We have seen some reasons for optimism in this budget, but at the same time, there are definitely things that we would like to see that are not happening. In terms of what we've seen with tangible steps, the Renters Reform Bill is now going through, which is generally welcomed by our sector as a whole, because it will be providing more rights for tenants and hopefully reducing the risk of becoming homeless through evictions. So the main thing that stood out to us as an organisation was the government's explicit commitment to extending funding for homelessness services. The government's committed to £233 million next year in funding for homelessness services across the country. That's obviously very, very welcome. We support that. That's a move that we think is absolutely necessary. £5 billion of investment into home building next year is excellent. And the fact that some of that's also gone into planning reform also seems intuitively like a good thing, because we know from our discussions with developers and construction firms that that's an issue for them. The government seems to be continuing with plans to reform work capability assessments. In practice, what this will mean is that it's more difficult for people who are ill or identified as having a disability to claim certain levels of benefits. That's potentially harmful. It's not going to help anybody's journey from rough sleeping to having their own home. It's clearly not the number one priority, but I would say that what they have done, when taken across the broad sweep of it, does appear to be sympathetic and supportive to the types of people who would become homeless.
The Prime Minister has announced that the UK is committing to cutting emissions by 81% by 2035 at the COP29 summit in Baku. Keir Starmer says that while the target is ambitious, the government will not start to tell people how to live their lives, such as telling people to take less car journeys or to eat less meat. Starmer told the summit that the UK has an opportunity to lead the world in the economy of tomorrow, which will mean better jobs and economic growth in the UK. In other news, Match of the Day host Gary Lineker is to step down from the flagship football show at the end of this season, after 25 seasons from hosting the show. The BBC have confirmed that Lineker will still host some BBC sports shows as their coverage of the 2026 World Cup. Lineker said that he is delighted to continue his association with BBC Sport and thanked all those who made it happen. Lineker will continue with the Match of the Day Top 10 podcast, while his The Rest is Football podcast will now be hosted on BBC Sounds. There is major disruption to trains between London Paddington and both Heathrow Airport and Reading following a track defect and shortage of signalling staff. Network Rail have warned that the Elizabeth Line, Great Western Railway and Heathrow Express services were all being affected, with disruption expected until the end of the day. Network Rail said engineers discovered the track defect on the high-speed line towards Paddington in the Acton area of West London, meaning they had to limit the speed at which trains could travel. And finally, the Londoners' Natasha visited a Twickenham art studio, which has opened its doors to run a variety of creative workshops for budding artists of all levels. Colne Road Studios, which created notable pieces in shows such as Bridgerton and Outlander, will host courses including life drawing and origami over the coming weeks. The studio is home to David Wetton and Karen Grosh, who have been sculptors and model makers for museums and the film industry for the last 30 years. Both David and Karen want to open their space up to other artists and provide local people with the opportunity to express their artistry in whatever way they wish. That's the latest. Your next update is at 5.
From our perspective, we've got a few months to properly plan it because it will come into effect next April. But already
From the Londoners newsroom at 5, I'm Evie McQuay. Breaking news, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, has announced that he will step down after facing mounting pressure to quit over his handling of an abuse scandal. Pressure on Welby has been intensifying since the publication last week of a damning report on the Church's cover-up of John Smith's abuse in the UK in the late 1970s to 80s. Around 130 boys are believed to have been victims of psychological, physical and sexual abuse at Christian summer camps. More news is to follow on this breaking story. Official figures suggest that the UK's unemployment rate has risen, while pay growth continues to slow. The rate of unemployment stood at 4.3% in the 3 months to September, which is an increase from 4% in the previous quarter. Tax rises have led to concerns from businesses that they may have to cut back on hiring and restrict wage increases for staff. This news comes days after Rachel Reeves delivered the budget in which she stated the government must restore economic stability and turn the page on 14 years of Conservative government. Reeves stressed the importance of reducing unemployment across the country. However, she'll be raising employers' national insurance contributions by 1.2 percent points to 15% from April 2025. We spoke to Greg Thorpe, Managing Director in Europe of Mars United Commerce, asking how this will affect him and how his company plans to strategise at tackling the increase in national insurance.
From our perspective, we've got a few months to properly plan it because it will come into effect next April. But already what we know is that that's going to make our margins a lot tighter. So from our perspective, there's going to be two things we'll do. One is we need to try and increase the amount of work that we're getting in so that we've got higher fees that we're billing to our clients, so we've got more revenue coming in. And then we've obviously got to keep a close control on our costs, and particularly staff costs. So from our perspective, what we want to try and do is not dramatically increase the number of employees that we've got, but to try and, even though we've got increased workload, manage that with a similar number of people. If we have to bring on board more people, then we're just going to have to ensure that everyone is working as efficiently as possible so that we're optimizing that. Beyond that, I think there's just an acceptance that when we're reporting to our internal teams that track how much money we're making, we need to be realistic and say there might be a reduction in the margins that we make last year. So when we put our forecast together this before the end of the year, we'll be making it clear that there might be some reduction in the amount of money that we can make as a business.
In sporting news, the BBC has confirmed that Match of the Day host Gary Lineker is to step down from the flagship football show at the end of this season after 25 years. The BBC and the broadcaster himself have agreed in principle a contract extension through to the 2026 World Cup. However, football fans won't be left with a Lineker-sized hole, as he is set to continue his Match of the Day Top 10 podcast, and the BBC will now also host the popular The Rest is Football podcast on BBC Sounds. In other news, the Prime Minister has declined to say how he will vote on the new Labour-led assisted dying bill. Kim Leadbeater, Labour MP, has proposed legislation to legalise assisted dying in England and Wales. Under the bill, which was published on Monday, terminally ill adults expected to die within 6 months could seek help to end their life if 2 doctors and a High Court judge verify they are eligible and have made their decision voluntarily. Leadbeater explains her plan is to shorten death rather than ending life and ensures the strictest safeguarding anywhere in the world. MPs will take part in an initial debate and vote on the terminally ill adults bill on the 29th of November. Good news for those who want to quit smoking. The NHS will start offering an improved stop smoking pill to tens of thousands of people in England. Verena Clean, a daily tablet given over a few months, is as effective as vapes and more effective than nicotine replacement gum or patches. The drug was previously available a few years ago under the name Champix, but was withdrawn due to impurities. Verena Clean is a prescription medication. Users will need to visit their GP or an NHS stop smoking service to get it. The drug works by reducing cravings for nicotine and blocking its effect on the brain. When used alongside behavioural support, it has been shown to help around 1 in 4 people to stop smoking for at least 6 months. In other news, a rise in scabies has been seen across London. SW London reporter Sapphire Hope reports on new data from the Royal College of General Practitioners. Records of the skin condition in the capital are 2/3 higher than they usually are at this time of year. Regular bathing and the avoidance of sharing personal items can reduce transmission risks and is advised. That's the latest. Your next update is at 5:15.
Thanks for having me on here because I think my opinion Thanks for having me on here because I think my opinion
From the Londoners newsroom at 5:15, I'm Sarah Masiba. With breaking news, the Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, has announced his resignation today after a report found the Church of England covered up sexual abuse by a barrister. On Monday night, more than 8,000 of the General Synod, the Church's parliament, signed a petition calling for Mr. Welby's resignation. This comes after the independent Makin report, which revealed that the Church of England, under Welby's leadership, mishandled serious allegations of sexual abuse involving boys. He has stepped down as head of the Angelic Church, a role he held since 2013. Next, the terminally ill adults end-of-life bill has been introduced to Parliament but has divided many. The Labour MP, Kim Leadbeater, introduced this bill and it's now in the second reading in the House of Commons. This bill aims to allow adults who are terminally ill to request and be provided with assistance to end their own life. PM Keir Starmer has said Labour MPs must take their own mind up on whether to vote in favour of legalising assisted dying, as he avoided expressing his own opinion. The introduction of an improved anti-smoking drug on the NHS in England might save thousands of lives, the Health Service's chief executive stated today. Veracalene has been demonstrated to function in helping individuals quit smoking, and it is proved to be more successful than nicotine replacement gum or patches. The NHS will now offer medication to tens of thousands of smokers in England each year as an additional option to help people out. Train services between London and Heathrow Airport and Reading are severely disrupted by a broken rail and a lack of signalling staff. The Elizabeth Line, Great Western Railway and Heathrow Express services are impacted, according to the passenger information website National Rail Inquiries. This means services between Paddington and Reading may be cancelled or delayed, and trains between Heathrow Airport and Paddington are not operating. It is expected that these delays will continue until the end of the day. In recent weeks, there has been major dispute over the Chancellor's Rachel Reeves' budget, which was released on the 30th of October. Whilst Reeves aims this budget to rebuild Britain and fix the foundations of our economy, she has admitted this is not the sort of budget we would want to repeat. A third-year university psychology student who aims to work under the NHS revealed her opinion about the budget and how it would impact her daily life.
So thanks for having me on here because I think my opinion represents a lot of students in my position. My name's Amina and I'm currently studying psychology and I work part-time in retail. I've had a chance to look over the Chancellor's recent budget announcement and I have mixed opinions. On one hand, there are parts that seem positive. The increased funding for the NHS does sound promising, especially for someone like me who hopes to work in mental health. In theory, that could mean better resources, better support for patients, and hopefully less burnout for the workers. But as a student and retail worker, there are concerns too. For example, if there's limited financial support for students or rising costs across the board, that could make it a lot tougher to manage living expenses on a tight budget. The budget doesn't seem to prioritise cost of living relief, which directly impacts people like me who rely on a part-time job just to make ends meet while studying. In retail, if costs keep rising, there's always a risk of cutbacks on hours or even job security issues. And as a future NHS worker, I hope that funding will translate to real changes rather than just headlines. Overall, while there are some hopeful points, there's a lot more that could be done to support students and young professionals like me.
And lastly, Seven Capitals Project, which was filed to Islington Council in August 2024, proposes to convert the currently empty property into a 27-storey tower that will include 242 student rooms and 178 new houses, Gabrielle Brown from the Londoners has reported. Local homeowners and residents are concerned that the proposed building will not address the borough's housing issues. Jeremy Corbyn, who is currently an MP for Islington North, has also expressed his disapproval of the development. He stated, "In no way in a borough with over 15,000 families in housing need and where of existing tenancies around 40% live in social housing can this be called an appropriate development." That's the latest. Your next update is at 5:30.
Rachel Reeves' budget has me feeling a mix of hope and frustration, to be honest.
From the Londoners newsroom at 5:30 p.m. I'm Rashad. Justin Welby has announced that he will resign as the Archbishop of Canterbury. A report found the Church of England covered up sexual abuses. Okay, I just had to mute the microphone. From the Londoners newsroom at 5:30 p.m. I'm Rashad. Justin Welby has announced that he will resign as the Archbishop of Canterbury. A report found the Church of England covered up sexual abuses. John Smith, who died in 2018, is said to have abused 130 boys and young men over 5 decades. A review suggests he might have been brought to justice had Mr. Welby reported it to police over a decade ago. Alleged victim Andy Moss wants him to stand down and says it is a wonderful opportunity for him to push the focus on caring for the victims of church abuse. Labour Chancellor Rachel Reeves has finally announced her awesome budget, featuring new increased spending on public services and increased taxes. Headline changes also include more expensive tuition fees for students and the increase in minimum wage. But what did these changes really mean for students?
Rachel Reeves' budget has me feeling a mix of hope and frustration, to be honest. On one hand, the minimum wage increase is a relief for a lot of us juggling school, part-time jobs, and especially in this cost of living crisis. But other parts of the budget make my future feel a bit more out of reach, like reducing the right to buy a discount. It literally means owning a home feels like it's slipping further and further away from us, even though it felt so far away already. Even with discounts, getting on the property ladder was already tough. So this change, honestly, it just makes it feel quite literally impossible to own a house in any form without years and years and years of saving. The increase in tuition fees, for those of us who are already dealing with student debt, which is bad enough, or those of us who are thinking of joining uni, the higher fees are just more of a financial hurdle. It feels like every path to a stable future is getting more expensive, whether it's education, housing, in any way. To be honest, altogether, minimum wage increase is a small win, I'd say, but the bigger changes on housing and tuition, they're just making it harder for my generation to feel secure about our futures in any way. It's great to see support for low-income workers, but I wish there were stronger measures in place to make our bigger goals, like graduating or owning a home, debt-free, more realistic, which I feel like is so far away from us, and it's honestly just worrying for all of us, I must say.
A police report has found the family of a woman was failed by a flawed investigation into her death. Ruth McGee, police initially treated the death of 21-year-old Katie Simpson, who is from in 2020, as a suicide. That was the story Jonathan Cresswell gave the detectives. He was ultimately charged with her murder, but was later found dead in his home one day into the trial earlier this year. The report reveals that much of the initial investigation was botched. Evidence wasn't collected and medics' concerns were ignored. A Premier League footballer was last week questioned by police following multiple allegations of sexual offences. The man in his 30s is under investigation for alleged rapes of 2 women and a sexual offence relating to a 3rd woman. Police first arrested him at an address in North London in July 2022 on suspicion of rape, and he has continued to play for his club since. He attended the station last Thursday and was interviewed under caution. A Met policeman said that Met officers are investigating following a number of reports of alleged sexual offences between 2021 and 2023. A man in his 30s was arrested in July 2020. He has since been interviewed by police on 2 further occasions while under caution. The investigation remains ongoing and detectives are continuing in-depth and detailed inquiries. Those who have come forward to police continue to receive support from Met officers. Gary Lineker is set to leave Match of the Day after 25 years on the BBC's flagship programme. Lineker will leave the show this summer, but will anchor the 2026 World Cup coverage under an 18-month contract extension. The former England star is paid more than £1.3 million a year, the highest declared salary of any BBC presenter. His departure comes after a public battle with BBC management over his use of social media, in which he criticised the Conservative government and Israel. Lineker compared the Conservatives' government and their Rwanda policy to the rise of Nazism in the 1930s Germany and was suspended. This later led to several pundits refusing to present the show in his absence. That's the latest. I'm Rashad.